start a pre-trip inspection on our truck now. As we approach the truck, we'll inspect the truck for leans either side. We'll inspect for drips, puddles, leaks, or anything hanging below the truck. We'll continue to approach the truck. We've got our headlight here. It's properly secured with nuts and bolts. It's not cracked, broke, or missing. We have a high beam, a low beam, an amber turn signal. We also have our amber turn lights, or clearance lights, excuse me. Our amber clearance lights.
Help him with the light
Not
check.
cracked or broken. They function properly. No missing screws or bolts. Now, would you help me perform a light check?
Yes.
That's my headlights. That's my high beams. My left turn signal. It's my right turn signal. That's my four-way emergency flashers. Now will you assist me on checking my trailer lights and my tractor lights? That's my four-way flashers. That's my left turn signal. My right turn signal, my brakes, and that's my reverse light. Now as he's coming up, I'll unlatch the hood. Fender hood mirror. Fender hood mirror is attached with nuts and bolts. None are missing. It's free of debris and cracks and properly adjusted. My hood. As I'm lifting the hood, I'm going to inspect it for holes, cracks. Nothing missing. It's properly attached with nuts and bolts. On this side of my truck, I've got my windshield washer fluid reservoir. It's properly attached with nuts and bolts. None are missing. They're tight, secure. It's filled to the proper level. The cap is properly seated and it does not leak. All my clamps and hoses are properly secured and tight. None are missing or broken. I have my alternator here. My alternator here is connected with nuts and bolts. None are missing, secure and tight. My wires are not frayed or missing. It's belt driven. The belt has no more than a 1/2 to 3/4 inch play in it. Now we'll come around here to the driver's side. This is my coolant reservoir. My coolant reservoir is filled to the proper level. It's properly secured with nuts and bolts. None are missing. The cap is tight and it does not leak. I'm going to come down here to my water pump. My water pump is properly secured with nuts and bolts. They are tight, none are missing. It is belt driven. The hoses are secure and tight. The belt is not worn, torn, or frayed. It has no more than a 1/2 to 3/4 inch play in it. It's my power steering reservoir. My power steering reservoir is filled to the proper level. The hoses are secure and tight. No missing nuts or bolts. And the cap is secure and it does not leak. I'm going to follow the black hose back here to my power steering pump. My power steering pump is properly secured with nuts and bolts. None are missing. The lines are all tight and it does not leak. It is gear driven. This is my air compressor. My air compressor is properly secured with nuts and bolts. None are missing. The lines are all coupled tightly and it does not leak. I also have an air tank back here. My air tank is properly secured with nuts and bolts. It does not leak and it is drained daily. Now I would check my oil right here. I would pull it out, wipe it off, stick it in, pull it back out again and check it. If I needed to fill it, I would fill it right here. It's my steering linkage. My steering linkage is properly secured with two U-bolts, or U-joints, excuse me. They're properly lubricated. It is not bent, broken, or twisted. It has no excessive play in it. My steering gearbox. My steering gearbox is properly secured with nuts and bolts. They're tight, none are missing, and it is properly lubricated. It's my pitman arm. My pitman arm is not cracked, bent, or broken. It's properly secured with a crown on cotter key, and it is lubricated properly. It's my drag link. My drag link's properly secured with 2 crown nut cotter keys, and it's properly lubricated. It's not bent or broken or cracked. I'm gonna come back up here to my leaf spring hanger. My leaf spring hanger is properly secured with nuts and bolts. None are missing. It has a rubber bushing that is not worn, torn, or frayed, and is not missing. The leaf spring's not shifted, cracked, bent, or broken. It's attached with 2 U-bolts and 4 nuts. They're not cracked, bent, or broken, or missing, and they're all tight and secure. I have a back leaf spring hanger. My back leaf spring hanger is secured with nuts and bolts. It's not bent or broken. The bushing is not worn, torn, or frayed, or missing. I have a shock. My shock is properly secured with nuts and bolts, and it does not leak. It's my air service line. My air service line is properly coupled. It's not worn, torn, or frayed, and it does not leak. I've got a brake chamber. My brake chamber is properly secured with nuts and bolts and a clamp that is tight, and it does not leak. Now I've got my push rod and slack adjuster. My push rod is not bent or broken, has no more than 1 inch play in it. It's properly secured with pins, along with my slack adjuster. It's properly secured, it's not bent or broken, and is properly secured with pins. I have my steering knuckle. My steering knuckle is properly secured with a crown on cotter key. It's not bent or broken, it's properly lubricated. I'm gonna come in here to my brake lining. My brake lining is not worn excessively thin, no less than 1/4 inch, has no cracks, and it's free of contaminants. My brake hub is not cracked, has no holes, and it is also free of contaminants.
Let's call that a drum, okay? Your drum, brake drum.
Yeah, your brake drum. What did I say? My brake hub?
Yeah.
Okay. My brake drum.
That's okay. Just keep going.
We're going to come on up here to my tire. My tire is evenly wore, no less than 4/32 wear. It's filled to 100 pounds of pressure, checked with the tire gauge or whatever the tire manufacturer recommends. The tire sidewall has no bulges, cracks, or dry rots. It's properly seated to my rim. My rim has no illegal wells, no cracks, and no rust trails. These are my lug nuts. My lug nuts are properly seated, properly tightened. They have no radial cracks, no distortions, and no rust trails. This is my valve stem. My valve stem is not bent or broken, has the proper DOT cap, and it does not leak. It's my hub seal. My hub seal is properly sealed, no missing nuts or bolts. The gasket's intact, it's filled to the proper level, and it does not leak. Now, if we was, I'm gonna say about part A.
Okay, if you were just doing A, you would stop right there. You'd show your safety equipment, then your coupling, then your end cap. But we're doing a full, so he's gonna keep right on going. There's Ricky getting his 2 minutes of fame.
Now, as we come on down, we're going to check our running signal light. Running light and signal light here. It's amber in color. It's properly secured. No missing nuts or bolts. It's not cracked or broken and operates properly. This is my mirror. My mirror is properly secured with nuts and bolts. None are missing. It's free of debris and cracks, and it's adjusted properly. This is my door and my hinges. My door and hinges are secured with nuts and bolts. None are missing. My door seal is properly secured. It's not worn, torn, or frayed, or missing, and it seats properly. This is my window. My window functions properly, up and down. These are my handrails. My handrails are properly secured, free of debris, properly secured with nuts and bolts, free of debris, are not missing. My door shuts properly. These are my steps. My steps are properly secured with nuts and bolts, none are missing, and it's free of debris and contaminants. This is my battery box, my batteries. My battery box and batteries are properly secured with nuts and bolts, no corrosions, and no electrical repairs. This is where I drain my air tanks, drain daily. This is my def tank. My def tank is properly secured with 2 metal straps. They're not cracked, bent, or broken, or missing. It's filled to the proper level. The cap is secure with a rubber seal. It does not leak. I'm going to open my compartment door. As I come on back, I'm checking my trucks for anything anything loose, any holes, cracks. It's my compartment door. My compartment doors and hinges are properly secured with nuts and bolts. None are missing. The seal is intact, it's not worn, torn, or frayed, or missing, and it seals properly. It's my safety items. I have a first aid kit, I have fuses, bulb, I have a chalk if you'd like me to chalk the wheel. I have a fire extinguisher filled at the proper level, properly tagged, and properly secured. I also have my 3 orange triangles. The compartment door properly seats. As I come around, I'm continuing to check the body of my truck for anything loose or missing. Right here I have my fuel tanks. My fuel tanks are properly secured with 2 metal straps. They're not cracked, bent, or broken, or missing. There's no holes, dents in my tanks. It does not leak. My cap's properly secured with a rubber seal, and it does not leak. We'll come on over here to my exhaust system. My exhaust system is properly secured with clamps and nuts and bolts. None are missing. There's no dents, holes, no soot trails, and it does not leak. I have my drive shaft. My drive shaft is properly secured with 2 U-joints, which are properly lubricated. It is not twisted, bent, or broken. It's my catwalking steps. My catwalking steps are properly secured with nuts and bolts. They're free of debris and contaminants. This is my frame. My frame has no illegal welds, no cracks. It is not broken. My cross members properly secured. Has no illegal welds, no cracks. It's my torque arm. My torque arm is properly secured with nuts and bolts. It's not twisted, bent, or broken. I'm going to come back up here to my leaf spring hanger. My leaf spring hanger is properly secured with my nuts and bolts. It's not bent, cracked, or broken. I have a leaf spring with a rubber bushing. My rubber bushing is not worn, torn, or frayed, or missing. My leaf spring is not cracked, bent, or broken, or shifted. It's connected with 2 U-bolts with 4 nuts. They're not cracked, bent, or broken, or missing, and they're tightly secured. I also have a shock. My shock's attached with nuts and bolts. None are missing. It does not leak. Now I'm going to come back in here to my air service line. My air service line is properly coupled. It's not worn, torn, or frayed. It does not leak. Goes down to my brake chambers. My brake chamber is properly secured with nuts and bolts and a clamp that is tight. It does not leak. I have a push rod and my slack adjuster. My push rod and slack adjuster is properly secured with pins. The push rod is not bent or broken and it has no more than 1 inch play in it. That leads over here to my brake lining. My brake lining is not worn dangerously thin, no less than 1/4 inch of wear. It's free of contaminants. My brake drum. My brake drum is not cracked, has no holes in it, and it's also free of contaminants. As I come back up here, I'm going to say my fender. My fender's properly secured with nuts and bolts. It's properly adjusted. No nuts and bolts are missing. I'm going to come over here to my bud spacing. My bud spacing is even and free of debris. My tires are worn evenly, no less than 2/32 wear. It's filled to 100 pounds of pressure, checked with the tire gauge or whatever the tire manufacturer recommends. My sidewall has no bulges, no cracks, or dry rots. It's properly seated to my rim. My rim has no illegal welds, cracks, or rust trails. I've got a valve stem. My valve stem's not bent or broken. It has the proper DOT cap, and it does not leak. I have my lug nuts. My lug nuts are properly secured, none are missing. There's no rust trails, radial cracks, or no distortions. I have my axle hub seal. My axle hub seal is properly secured with nuts and bolts. The gasket's intact. It's filled to the proper level, and it does not leak. As I come around here, I've got an airbag. My airbag's properly secured with nuts and bolts. It's not worn, torn, or frayed, and it does not leak. Now we'll check this axle the same as I checked this axle. As I come on back, I've got my mud flap and my mud flap hanger. My mud flap hanger is properly secured with nuts and bolts. It's not bent or broken or missing. My mud flap has the proper DOT tape and it's properly adjusted. Not worn, torn, or frayed. As I come on under here, I've got my lights, my backup lights, turn signal lights, brake lights, running lights, and also my tag lights. They're all properly secured, no missing nuts or bolts. The lenses are not cracked or broken, and they all operate and function properly. Now then, I'm going to go on into my coupling. My apron is not bent or broken or cracked. There's no gap in between it and the fifth wheel. They're both properly lubricated. My kingpin's not bent or broken or missing, and the locking jaw is secured around it. We're going out here to my mounting bracket. My mounting bracket's properly secured with nuts and bolts. It's not cracked, bent, or broken, or missing. This goes up here to my slide rail and my platform base. My slide rail and platform base are properly secured. It's properly adjusted and locked into place where my truck does not hit my landing gear while turning. It is also air activated. My air line is properly secured. It's not cracked or broken, and it does not leak. My fifth wheel is properly secured with nuts and bolts. It's properly lubricated, and there's no gap in between it and my apron. It's my release arm. My release arm's in the locking position with the safety latch over it. We'll come on around here to my glad hand. My electrical connection. My glad hand is properly secured. The seal is intact. It's not worn, torn, or frayed. They do not leak. My electrical connections properly secured and locked into place. There are no illegal repairs on the lines, no black tape. They're adjusted properly to where they do not drag my catwalk when I'm turning. They're also attached to my truck in the same form and fashion. They do not leak.
If you were doing just a part, that would end B. We will continue on with C.
Now, if we continue on, we're going to check the front of our truck. The front of my truck is properly secured with nuts and bolts. There's no illegal welds, no holes, no cracks. I'm going to come along here to my bumper rail and my stake pockets. My bumper rail and stake pockets are properly secured, no illegal welds. They're not bent or broken. I have the proper DOT tape. I have my ratchet straps. My ratchet straps are properly secured, not bent or broken, and none are missing. As I come on down, continue to check my bumper rail, my stake pockets to make sure they're properly secured, not bent or broken or missing. Now my landing gear. My landing gear is properly secured with nuts and bolts. It's raised all the way to the proper height. The arm is in the locking position. No feet are missing, not bent or broken. As I come on down, I'm checking my frame. My frame has no illegal welds. It's not cracked or broken. My cross members are all in place. They're properly secured, not bent or broken. None are missing. I'm also checking the floor of my trailer for any holes or anything missing.
Lateral supports.
And my
lateral supports.
Yeah, my braces. Yeah, my lateral supports.
Not bent, cracked, broken, or missing.
Yeah, not bent, cracked, broken, or missing. No missing nuts or bolts. Come along, I've got a running light and turn light that's properly secured. The lens is not cracked, bent, or broken, and it operates properly. I'm coming on down, I'm continuing to check my bumper rail, my stake pockets. When we get down here, I've got my tandem release. My tandem release properly secured, it's air activated, it does not leak. The pins are in the locked position, my axles are adjusted properly. I'm going to go on in here to my service line. My air service line is properly coupled. It's not worn, torn, or frayed, and it does not leak. They go over to my brake chambers. My brake chamber is properly secured with nuts and bolts and a clamp, which is tight, and it does not leak. I also have my push rod and my slack adjusters, properly secured with pins. None are bent or broken. There's no more than 1 inch play in my push rod. Now I have a shock. My shocks are properly secured with nuts and bolts. It's not bent or broken, and they do not leak. I have another airbag. My airbag's properly secured with nuts and bolts. It's not worn, torn, or frayed, and it does not leak. I'm gonna come on in here to my brake linings. My brake linings are not worn dangerously thin, no less than 1/4 inch wear, and free of contaminants. My brake drum has no holes, cracks, or distortions, and is free of contaminants. Up here to my tires. First I'm going to go to my bud spacing. My bud spacing is even and free of debris. Come on over here to my tires. My tires are evenly wore, no less than 2/32 tread wear, filled to 100 pounds of pressure, checked with the tire gauge or whatever the tire manufacturer recommends. The sidewall has no bulges, cracks, or dry rots. It's properly seated to my rim. My rim has no illegal welds, no cracks, and no rust trails. I have another valve stem. My valve stem's not bent or broken, has the proper DOT cap, and it does not leak. These are my lug nuts. My lug nuts are all properly secured. There's no rust trails, no radial cracks, and no distortions. None are missing. This is my axle hub seal. My axle hub seal is properly secured with nuts and bolts. The gasket's intact, it does not leak, and it's filled to the proper level. Over here I have my trailer air tank. My trailer air tank is properly secured with nuts and bolts. The fittings are all tight and coupled. It does not leak, and it's drained daily. I would check this axle the same as I checked that axle. Now as I come on here, I've got my mud flap hanger. They're all secured with nuts and bolts. None are bent, broken, or missing. My mud flap's not torn or worn or frayed. It's adjusted to the proper level. As I come on back, I'm going to continue to check my bumper rail and stake pockets. I come back here to my ABS light. My ABS light's amber in color, properly secured, not cracked, bent, or broken. If it's on, I can continue to operate my truck, but I need to have it serviced as soon as possible. I also have a running light here. It's red, it's properly secured, not cracked, bent, or broken. Operates properly. As I come to the back of my truck, I've got my rubber bump pads. They're properly secured, not worn, torn, or frayed, no missing nuts or bolts. I also have a bump rail, a rub rail, and stake pockets, which are properly secured. No cracks, no illegal welds. I've got my running lights, my brake lights and turn signals, emergency four-way flashers, all red in color, properly secured, not cracked or missing, and they operate properly.
But when we do that, we need to separate those out, okay?
Oh, turn signals?
Yeah, we're not going to do it now, but
Okay.
okay.
Okay. So,
Yeah, just continue.
Now I have my bumper. My bumper is properly secured with nuts and bolts. It's a proper DOT bumper with proper DOT tape. It's not cracked, bent, or broken. I have my tag, it's clearly legible. My tag light functions properly. Now if I had a load, I would ask you to make sure that I know my load's secure. At this time, I would ask you to join me in cab for an in-cab inspection. See what he's saying about the lights.
Right.
Turn signal.
I didn't find one.
I did my proper three-point entry into the truck. This is my seat belt. My seat belt's properly secured with nuts and bolts. It's not worn, torn, or frayed, and it latches properly. Now I'm going to perform a safe start. The brakes are set. Truck's in neutral. I'm going to idle it up so the air will build up. We can do our test when it's time. I have my mirror. My mirror is not cracked or broken. It's adjusted to the proper level and I can see clearly. These are my horns. They both function properly. It's my windshield. It's not cracked, bent, or broken, or missing. The seal is intact and it does not leak. These are my windshield wipers. My windshield wipers have full contact with the windshield and the washer fluid works properly. Now this is my defroster. My defroster functions properly, and this is my floor heater. My floor heater functions properly. I'm going to release my brakes. As I come over here, we're going to check our dash lights. This is my illumination lights so I can see at night, see my gauges at nighttime. This is my left turn signal indicator, my right turn signal indicator. It's my high beam indicator. That's my four-way flasher indicators. I'm going to go on to my gauges. This is my water gauge. My water gauge goes from 165 to 185. My volt meters is from 12 to 14. My oil pressure is from 35 to 75. And my air pressure is from 120 to 140. We'll continue to idle up here. And I'm going to perform my leak test. And I get my air built up here to the proper level. What did I do? Oh, I didn't turn it on. My bad. going to perform my leak test. I'm going to shut the engine off. I'm going to turn my key back on, let the gauges reset. All right, the gauges are reset. Now I'm going to hold 90 pounds of pressure on my brake pedal for 1 minute, and it should lose no more than 4 psi. It's a long time when you're timing it.
It is.
And there's a minute 1, and as you can see, it didn't leak much. Now we're going to perform our warning light test. I'm going to continue to pump the air brakes down, and the warning light should come on before it reaches 60. As you can see, it came on about 80. Now we'll perform our protection valve test. Protection valve should pop between 40 and 20 psi. There's the trailer. There's the tractor. Now then, if I had a wheel chock, I'd get out and get my wheel chock. But I don't, so I'm going to perform another safe start. My vehicle's in neutral. Now I'm going to idle the engine up, build my pressure up to 85, and we're going to do a pressure build test. Once the pressure reaches 85, I'm going to time it from 85 to 100. Should take no more than 45 seconds. There's 85. And there's 100. about 19 seconds. Now then, I'm going to continue to let the air build up, and we'll perform our parking brake test. First, we're going to release our trailer brakes, apply the tractor brakes. And it held. Now we're going to release our tractor brakes and apply the trailer brakes. They held. Now we'll perform our service brake test. I'll have to back up here just a little bit. I'll proceed forward, get the truck up to 5 miles an hour, depress the clutch and the brake, let loose the steering wheel. If it pulls to either side, I'll need to have the brake serviced immediately. Mine's good. I'll set my brakes, my truck in neutral. That ends the inspection.
That completes my pre-trip.
Completes my pre-trip.